Welcome into the Wilt Fong Whip Around. It is Monday, April 29. Big weekend of spring games, Colorado, Oregon, Nebraska. We're going to get to it all, and I got the man himself, Steve Wilt Fong, here. We're going to break it all down, but first, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. Look at this. We're almost to 50K. You guys can get us there. Hit subscribe. All right, let's bring on national analyst Steve Wilt Fong, and we are going to start with a couple of your recent Fong Bombs. We'll run through a couple of these. As we can see, the green arrows mean that you've hit on a couple this week. I really want to talk about linebacker Nasir Wyatt, and obviously we're going to talk more about Oregon this weekend, but the Cali linebacker was kind of rumored to be making a decision back in March. Obviously, he held off. Still has not, but you dropped a Fong Bomb prediction on the recruiting prediction machine for Oregon this weekend. What's going on with Nasir Wyatt out of Mater Dei?
Well, never has there been a time where I didn't think Oregon was the program to beat here. I think it's just a matter of me getting over here to On3, wrapping up my first month here. Very excited about that. It's gone so fast. But this was a prediction I logged a long time ago when I was at 24/7 Sports. Now that I'm on 3, doing some upkeep, talked to a source over the weekend, feels like Oregon's still in that sweet spot for him. And so I logged the pick. I think ultimately he'll end up in Eugene as things stand now. Oregon's done a great job prioritizing him. He always enjoys his time in Eugene. And so at this point, until someone tells me different, I think he's Oregon's to lose.
All right. You also put in predictions for edge Dayton Hopkins to Mizzou, edge Jared Smith to South Carolina. We talked about that last week in a video. All right. So a big weekend of spring games. Are there any other recruits that maybe you're close to putting in a prediction on coming out of the weekend?
Sure. Well, I think one to keep an eye on is TJ Latif in Nebraska, 4-star quarterback from California. No program has done a better job of recruiting him than the Huskers. Got him on campus for the spring game over the weekend, over 60,000 fans. Just the opportunity to play on that stage for that program at a place where he's been prioritized. I feel like Nebraska is doing the best job in that recruitment. So we'll see. Still looking to talk to a couple people this morning. But I certainly liked where Nebraska stood coming into the visit and continue to hear good things as we start Monday.
All right, let's whip it around to Alabama. Now, they did not have their spring game. They've already played their spring game, but there was a major development this weekend on the Bama QB board. Steve, tell us what happened, actually.
Well, one of the first prospects that the Alabama staff went to go see on the road this past week was Keelan Russell, state champion quarterback out of Duncanville, 4-star recruit, currently committed to SMU. Jamarcus Shepard, Nick Sheridan, and company were out in the Lone Star State, watched Keelan Russell throw, and extended him a scholarship. And this is a guy that's climbing a lot of programs boards, Alabama one of them. And we said that, hey, this spring Alabama would go out and see some of their favorite guys throw and offer some scholarships, and Keelan Russell was the first to get that. And I had a chance to talk to him about that opportunity, and he talked about the stage that Alabama plays on. He talked about the offense. And he said what they did with Michael Penix really caught his eye. This is a guy, his body type kind of reminds you of Michael Penix when he was in high school. And there's a lot to like about Alabama from his perspective. He sees Kalen DeBoer, 104-12 as a head coach, 3 national championships on the NAIA level. In 2 years, had Washington competing for the national championship. Now he's at Alabama. We've seen Keelan Russell look at some other programs, take some other visits. Alabama will be a school to watch with him moving forward as well.
All right, Keelan Russell recruitment continues to stay red hot. How's the rest of the Alabama quarterback board looking?
Well, they've been in on a few guys already. Certainly that list starts with Julian Lewis, the 5-star USC commit out of Carrollton High there in the state of Georgia. Now, we've talked a lot more about Auburn and Colorado being the programs in best position to currently flip Julian Lewis from USC. But all things even, if all things were even in this recruitment, all the chips on the table were the same, I think Alabama would be the one that would be the biggest threat to flip him from USC. And there continues to be really good dialogue between the Lewis camp and Alabama. He made a couple visits over there this spring. So we'll see how that process continues into the fall, because certainly Julian Lewis and his family like what Alabama's done at the quarterback position under this staff. Then you have Deuce Knight, Notre Dame commit. There's obviously been dialogue there. And again, Alabama's on the road. They're out seeing quarterbacks, guys that could be intriguing to them. North Carolina commit Bryce Baker, TCU commit Ty Hawkins. those are other guys that I wouldn't be surprised if we see down the road also have an opportunity from Alabama to consider.
All right, Bama fans, talk to me. Who's your favorite quarterback on the board? Let me know. Comment section below. All right, one more one-off recruiting weekend we got to hit on, and that was at Ohio State. They hosted the number one wide receiver in America, Doran Moore. Now, he was supposed to be in for the spring game, couldn't make it because of 7-on-7 obligations, but he's now in Columbus, first visit of the year. What are you hearing on Doran Moore coming out of this one?
Well, this was his second time at Ohio State this spring. Arrived on Friday, left on Sunday morning. First time on campus with his mom, so it was a big visit for him to get his mom there, show her the place, for her to get an in-person feel for the Ohio State coaches and staff. Certainly, they know what it looks like on paper, but for her to get up to Columbus, see it for herself, and for Doran Moore to be the only recruit on campus, they were able to get a lot of intimate time with Coach Day, Coach Hartline, and the staff. And everything I'm hearing, the returns are strong. Chad Simmons has a story on the On3 Letterman Row platform, so you want to go check that out. But Ohio State's on the short list here for Doran Moore, longtime commit to LSU. When you're a wideout, he's looking at all the right programs. LSU, they have as much tradition as anyone at the position. Ohio State and what Brian Hartline's done. Texas and Coach Steve Sarkisian and his track record. And then you have Oregon also in the mix. He's made several visits to Eugene, expected back there in May. This is a recruitment that I still think, even though Doran Moore was one of the first prospects to blow up nationally in 2025, that's still pretty early, still on that first lap. LSU sprinted out to the lead with the commitment, but these other three schools are very much in play. Ohio State in particular, because of the way they practice, the way they maximize 5 stars there at that position, and then just the relationship with Coach Hartline and the staff. Don't sleep on the Buckeyes here. I'm not sleeping on the Ducks or the Longhorns either. And then obviously committed to LSU. I still think this could go a lot of different ways. He's got the state track meet this weekend. Then he'll be back out on the road seeing top schools through the rest of the summer and trying to make a final decision before his senior season.
All right. Speaking of the Ducks, the Oregon spring game, it was an opportunity for the Ducks to get ahead in recruiting, namely by getting the number one player in the 26 class on campus. Now, Jaem Stewart was there. We're going to cover that. A few other 5 stars that were also visiting. I got Steve Wiltfong here. We're going to break it all down. Steve, let's start with Jaem Stewart. Seemed like a good visit over the weekend with the Ducks. What are you hearing?
Well, we've talked to Jaem Stewart after his visit to Ohio State a couple weekends ago, and that blew him away. He was back at USC for a third time last weekend, and we know he loves the Trojans and has return trips planned for both of those schools. But talking to Clyde Alexander, his private position coach from Edge Assassins, following this Oregon visit, he said that Jaem looked at him and said, "Coach, I have a very hard decision to make." They said it was unreal at Oregon. And again, this is a young man that may reclassify. He's looking into the academic part of what that would entail so he could move from the 2026 class to 2025. And if he does that, I think it's obvious Oregon is another program that's on his short list that I would expect him to make it back to for an official visit at some point. Dan Lanning helping build that powerhouse at Georgia, then what he's quickly done at Oregon, and just the resources that the Oregon football program has. Those are all things that have excited Jaem Stewart, Coach Tosh Lupoy, just that entire staff. Oregon is one that gave him a lot to think about this weekend, and they said as much.
All right, 5-star cornerback DJ Picket was back in Eugene. What do you make of this battle that's brewing between Miami, LSU, and Oregon for 5-star DJ Picket?
Yeah, I think Oregon came into the visit third, but very much in play with a chance to win this thing when all said and done. Oregon is different, his father told me. A lot of resources, fan support is crazy. They had over 40,000 fans at the spring game. They're very much looking forward to the official visit in June, which will be DJ's 4th time on Oregon's campus. So they're right there with Miami and LSU. I still think if Miami has a great season this fall, they're a team to watch. And DJ's taking his recruitment into the season so he can watch these teams play football. But LSU, the long-standing relationship with Corey Raymond that dates back to when Corey was at Florida. Now he's back at LSU, which is his sweet spot where he developed so many great players. That excites DJ. He always feels at home at LSU. But Oregon, when he's there, he's very comfortable. He went to a game last year. Made a couple visits already this year. This was a great visit. And the thing that they pointed out was Coach Lanning seems to be a genuine person who's about his players. The staff is engaged with not just the prospect, but the prospects' families. And again, pointed to the resources. So Oregon is a top contender for DJ Picket going into the summer.
There's a group of 3 modern-day high school players that made a quick field trip up to Eugene for the spring game, a talented bunch. Linebacker Nasir Wyatt, running back Jordan Davison, and wide receiver Marcus Harris. Steve, what are you hearing out of this modern-day trio?
Well, for Wyatt, like Oregon, as we talked about at the top of the show, my RPM is on the Ducks. It was a pick that I had at my previous workplace, 24/7 Sports, now here at On3 for nearly a month. I'm doing some housekeeping with my predictions and talking to sources around that recruitment. I like where Oregon continues to stand there. So my RPM is on the Ducks. I think Oregon's an interesting school to watch for On300 receiver Marcus Harris. The Ducks are putting together a fantastic receiver class. They're in the mix for some of the elite guys in the country moving forward. And Marcus Harris said that it had a home feel to him as well. And he feels like it's a place he could play early. And Junior Adams just really does a good job of recruiting top targets. Now with Jordan Davison, each visit always seems like a great one until I hear differently. I think Ohio State is still the program to beat, but he just had a great visit to Texas. Oregon always does it right when these guys come to campus. So we'll see if that recruitment has some twists and turns in the future. But I'm still riding with the Buckeyes right now for Jordan Davison.
All right, last prospect I want to talk to you about when it comes to Oregon and their spring game was tight end Lincoln Kier, the number 2 ranked tight end in America. Coming into the visit, it seemed like the Ducks had a little bit of work to do on the recruiting prediction machine. Did they get it done with this visit?
Yeah, while the predictions have been on Kansas State, you can't sleep on Oregon, particularly because this visit wasn't even on the calendar until like a few days before he made it out there. It was very important for him to get to the spring game. Dan Lanning and Drew Maringer and company went and visited him while they were on the road during the evaluation period. He's back for the spring game. Then he has an official visit set for June. It's the weekend right before Kansas State, but they're giving Oregon every opportunity to pull him out of the state. The idea of living in the Pacific Northwest is exciting to Lincoln Kier. And he said, you can really feel the culture of the program. Everything excites me about the Ducks. I absolutely love it. So anyone that thinks that this young man is a lock to stay home, which again, it would be exciting for him to play in front of family. And certainly Kansas State has a great shot at landing him. He's not a lock to end up at Kansas State. And Texas A&M, their OC, Colin Klein, who just came from Kansas State, played there. He's going to get Lincoln Kier down the campus in May down at College Station, Texas A&M. So we'll see if the Aggies can make a move as well.
All right, let's head over to Boulder with the Colorado spring game. Lots of commitments over the weekend, both transfer portal and high school. I like the transfer portal moves they made. We talked with Pete Nakos on this channel in a different video. You guys can go watch that. But Colorado also got busy at the high school level. Commitments over the weekend from Alex Graham out of IMG, linebacker Montrez Walker, tight end Corbin LaShurst. And, you know, right now you can kind of feel it, Steve. Momentum is building in Colorado. So let's talk about a few of the top uncommitted prospects in attendance, and we'll start with blue chip running back Byron Lewis, who spent 4 days on campus. Now, we talked about Byron Lewis last week heading off of his FSU visit where you really like the Noles' chances. Now, did this visit change that? What's your view of this recruitment now?
Josh, I want to talk about Byron, but real quick on those 3 commitments. Alex Graham, Montrez Walker, they've been national names in that cycle for a long time. We know that Colorado is very particular with who they recruit on the high school front, as they've been very transfer portal driven. Corbin LaShurst is a guy that they obviously absolutely covet. Heard as much from sources around the program. He's a two-way stud in the state that you live in Tennessee, at over 100 tackles, in addition to being a matchup nightmare at tight end. So they are fired up about that commitment in Boulder, and they would love to add Byron Lewis to that fold. The Fort Lauderdale American Heritage Blue Chipper was the first one on campus, spent 4 days there this week, said it was electric there. Devin Rispress has done a really good job for Colorado recruiting in the Southeast this cycle. Now, Florida State, Miami, Ohio State, some of the other top contenders. He's going to lock in his official visits publicly on May 1st. I think it's trending well for Colorado to get one of those visits, because he said they have real fans. Even in the rain, they came out and supported. They really believe in Coach Prime, he said, and I think he believes in Colorado too. And he just loves that coaching staff to support around Deion Sanders. He called them great recruiters as well.
All right, so offensive line recruiting has been a priority. Last year it was Jordan Seaton, and you love the fact that they landed Jordan Seaton, but you want to see 3 or 4 quality offensive linemen in a class as well, and they're starting to get them on campus. 5-star Michael Fasusi was there at the spring game, Micah DeBow, Zaire Addison. What did Colorado do this weekend in terms of making a move on some of these offensive linemen?
Well, DeBose, I feel like he was just there. I don't even know if he really left and went back to Alabama. His second visit was so soon after the first. So it's obvious that he's enjoying Colorado at this point in his process, where we've seen LSU kind of trend since he reopened his recruitment. Auburn is in there for sure. Alabama got a recent visit. Florida State. To name a couple of the others that he's high on, but it's obvious that he likes Colorado a lot. And the same thing goes with Addison. He was there twice this spring, and even though he doesn't have an official visit set up with Colorado right now, he's going to be at UCLA soon, and Florida, Miami, Penn State, some of the other schools that he's really looking at. Florida State is one that I thought has led at points this spring. He said it was electric in Boulder as well. It said it was impressive to see the coaching staff in action. They reiterated what a priority he is for them. And he said this visit just solidified his excitement for the direction that Colorado's going in. And then obviously they're taking their swing at 5-star Michael Fasusi. And even though they don't lead right now, they didn't lead at this point for Jordan Seaton either.
Right.
And so we'll see what happens as Michael Fasusi continues through his process. He was supposed to return to Oklahoma before getting to Colorado. That did not happen. Now, he's been to Oklahoma several times. There's been times where I felt like they've led. Texas is the RPM favorite. Certainly they're in a good spot. Took 3 visits to A&M this spring, so they're rising. And then Missouri, they have a lot of momentum on the trail too. But Colorado, with what they did with Jordan Seaton last cycle, how could you rule them out for Michael Fasusi this cycle?
Yeah, some big names on campus. Now, there's one more intriguing name that got me, and I want to talk to you about him. That's FSU edge commitment Javen Hilson. He already flipped once in his recruitment. He was a Bama commitment, flipped to FSU. Now he's been taking some more visits. How's it looking, though, with Hilson after his trip to Colorado?
Well, he enjoyed talking to Coach Prime and said it was a great visit. I have to hear more regarding their position. Alabama's the program I view as the biggest threat to flip him from Florida State, but he's looking at Florida, UCF, took a visit to Texas A&M this spring, also went out and saw Fran Brown in Syracuse. So he's made some rounds, and this was an opportunity to get out to Colorado. His phone lines are open, and so we'll see. Florida State, they're going to have to protect.
Let's head out to Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Husker spring game might have won the weekend. 60,000 people watched Dylan Raiola go off, but they weren't the only ones. A lot of top recruits were on hand too, and I got On3 Steve Wiltfong. We're going to break it all down now. Steve, there was 8 official visits this weekend. Husker Online does an incredible job of covering them all. I want to talk about a couple big ones, and none bigger than 5-star athlete Michael Terry out of the state of Texas. What are you hearing on him following this official visit?
Well, how about if you're Michael Terry, you get off the plane for your official visit, and you get on campus, or you get into Lincoln, and you see the Journal-Star, a newspaper, mind you, and on the top flap of the sports section is an article about him and just how important of a prospect he is for Nebraska. That blew him away right away. He felt the love. He said the community was ready for him, and he was showing a lot of love in return. He said it was a very, very nice place. He said the things that they have set for the future are big. He thinks it's a good fit because of the staff. The education is great. And his best quote, I believe that Coach Rule is going in the right direction with the program, and the connections he has with the players and parents is unbelievable. He said there were a lot of ex-parents and ex-players and parents there, and you can tell they still felt comfortable. Nebraska sees him as a dominant player, as a dominant pass catcher in their offense. He enjoyed talking X's and O's with receivers coach Garrett McGuire. And so Nebraska, they're battling A&M. He's going to visit there this summer with an official Oregon's in serious contention. USC's trying to make a move. Texas is on the board, but Nebraska certainly put their best foot forward this weekend with Michael Terry and will be one of the major contenders as he continues through his process.
All right. Now, another big name that was in Lincoln was quarterback TJ Latif. And as we can see, the quarterback dominoes are falling, and they're falling fast. Is QB TJ Latif, could he be next?
So I'm not sure on his timeline right this second, but coming into the visit, I like Nebraska's position. He's the guy that they've marked as QB1 on their board and has recruited him as such. And I'm not sure any other program in the country has given him that treatment, and he feels that. He is a major priority for them as they now try and build depth, competitive depth in their quarterback room behind Raiola and Daniel Kalen. And so he would be a major addition for them to come in and push the room and see what happens. And his relationship with that coaching staff, he feels the love from them and knows exactly how they feel about him.
Yeah, I feel like that's a name to watch coming out of the spring game. See if he's almost ready to drop an announcement date. Maybe something like that will happen here soon. One more official visitor we got to hit on, and that's top 100 linebacker Dawson Merritt, the number 3 player in the state of Kansas. He's trending to Alabama on the recruiting prediction machine, but this weekend he was in Lincoln for that OV. What are you hearing?
Yep, and that was a quick addition coming out of the Alabama visit where Chad Simmons and I log RPMs in favor of Alabama with the returns on his second visit of the spring to Alabama. They certainly set the bar and became the leader, but this was a second trip to Nebraska in 3 weeks as well, and he said it was crazy. The atmosphere for the spring game was insane. Fans asking to take pictures with him. He just said that was electric. And the most exciting thing about the visit, he just said, was the people. And that's what he's always said about Nebraska. I think his relationship with the Nebraska staff is second to none. Now, that stage at Alabama, the caliber of football that they're playing, that's what Nebraska's trying to get to by recruiting guys like Dawson Merritt. He sees that at Alabama right now. I talked to a source this morning. Sounds like it's still in a good spot for Alabama, but at the very least, Nebraska gave him a lot to think about. And it was just eye-raising in general that, because that was supposed to be a trip in June, Josh, got moved up right away to May and right off that Alabama visit. And so we'll see what Dawson's thinking as he now digests those 2 visits together and the post-visit high of what was an awesome weekend in Lincoln wears off.
Yeah. Now, we also know that Nebraska puts a priority on in-state recruiting, and the spring game is a big opportunity for in-state recruiting. So did you pick up any nuggets along the way on in-state targets for Nebraska?
Yeah, on 300 tight end Chase Lofton. And he's high on other places like Florida State, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, but being inside that fan-filled stadium, talking to all the coaches, he had a really good time, and he feels like those young quarterbacks give him an opportunity to shine for years to come in that offense. He says it's a great fit for tight end. So Chase Lofton, that's one of the most competitive recruitments out there for Nebraska as far as keeping a young man in state, and so getting him there for that was big. Linebacker Christian Jones, one of the freak athletes, second-level defenders in this class, also took recent visits to Tennessee, Texas A&M, USC, and Florida. He's going to drop his official visits soon, but he likes the way the culture's changing under Coach Rule, likes getting around the players. Pierce Mooberry, Nebraska leads for him. He doubled down that Nebraska continues to definitely set the standard for him, a linebacker out of Millard North. He loved the environment, said Husker fans never disappoint. He's excited to continue his relationship with that coaching staff. And I'm excited. I need to log that RPM. I need to get a RPM logged for Pierce Mooberry as well for him to ultimately stay in state and go to Nebraska. But ton of reaction from the weekend on 3 from Nebraska's spring game. And we'll keep adding to that coverage here on Monday as we continue to hear from prospects that were there over the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Husker Online does an incredible job of covering all things football and recruiting, so go check that out as well. All right, Steve, one last major development before we get out of here, and that's USC hosted the number 1 quarterback in 2026, Rider Lions. Of course, Lincoln Riley getting his claws in early on the number 1 quarterback in the 26 cycle. What are you hearing about Lions' visit to USC?
And his older brother Walker signed with USC in the 2023 cycle. So this is a family very familiar with USC. Ryder Lyons was supposed to visit the weekend before, but had something come up. Instead of going to UCLA spring game this weekend, he makes it back to USC. Said the visit was amazing. Said they do things different at USC. And Coach Riley spent a lot of time with him. So did Coach Luke Heward. He said the quarterback development that they do at USC is unbelievable. Obviously, Coach Riley, the 3 Heismans, the first-round picks, he said tells you everything you need to know about Coach. I think you got to make USC the early front runner for Ryder Lyons. There's a lot of programs out there trying to change that, as he has offers from Oregon to Florida State to Georgia, Notre Dame, Washington, Michigan, Ole Miss. So he's got creme de la creme quarterback opportunities, but till I hear different, I think it's USC setting the pace early for the best dual threat quarterback in the 2026 class in Ryder Lyons.
All right, there you have it. The Wiltfong Whip Around with Steve Wiltfong. Appreciate you guys stopping by. We talked a lot of spring game action, and we will be back on Thursday for another action-packed episode.